Hello, fourth grade. Good morning. Mr. Bauer here. Well, we're reaching the end of the year. This particular video is for June 3rd. Okay, so that would be a Wednesday, and then next week, fourth grade, you'll get 2 more videos, and then that's it. I don't know how many Zoom meetings we'll have in there, but we'll take care of that later. So today, June 3rd, Wednesday, June 3rd, we are doing all of Module 2 because there's quite a few games in this particular module, and we're not going to do the games. Okay, we're getting right to the meat. And so even though we're doing a whole module, there's only 5 pages of student book because, like I said, there's so many games, workplaces in that stretch. So mainly what we're looking at today is decimals and fractions, but more specifically tenths and hundredths. Okay, now this is a review for lots of you, if I remember right. Let's just review. Okay, we know that 2/10, okay, is 0.2, and it's kind of funny, it's kind of cool, you pronounce them the same. This is 2/10 as a fraction, and this is 2/10 as a decimal. This one, 36 hundredths. 36 hundredths. Okay? I know some of you like to say 0.36, but that is, 36 hundredths. Now, what happens when there's a single digit hundredths? This is 7 hundredths. So there's no tenths. See, it's not even up to a 10, it's only 7. So there's no tenths. This is 7 hundredths, 0.07. Okay, keep that in mind. In the teacher's guide, it kind of showed if we were in school, in class, we would have talked about a teacher page in there. And you remember the mat that we did in the fall. You know, we did the mat and then the mat and all that. Well, here's a 100 square mat, and there's one, so that's 1/100th, okay? Which, as I just said, is that, okay? Then we also have, if we do one whole strip here, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 hundredths, but it's also 1/10 of the mat. Okay, and I just threw this one up because I added them together, and I thought, why not? So we got 10 plus 1, 11 hundredths, and it's kind of funny. You could just go. So we got the smallest, next, and the largest out of those 3. See that? 11 hundredths is greater than 1/10, and 1/10 is greater than 1/100th. So now, this was supposed to be in the teachers. I know I'm not a very good drawer, but that's a meter stick with centimeters. Okay, so picture that wooden meter stick we have in class. And it's just reminding you, what I did here is these are decimeters. Okay, and that's pretty close to their normal size, actually. So that's 10 centimeters. But it's also 10 out of 100, because in here are 10 centimeters out of a total of 100 on a meter stick. But decimeters breaks the meter stick into 10 equal pieces, and it's also 1/10 of those. And then if we go down, obviously, this is 1, 2, 3 decimeters, 3/10, but it's also got 10, 20, 30 centimeters. Okay, so 30 hundredths. Just a quick reminder of what we're talking about. Up here, now don't freak out or anything, but I want to show you my drawing and just explain it to you. Okay, so it's between 0 and 1. Okay, so we got all these numbers are less than 1, these fractions. Okay, And the red, I broke them down into tenths. Okay, I broke this number line down into tenths. So each red one is 1/10. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tenths. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 tenths is 1 whole. So what I wanted to just show you was where these tenths and hundredths show up. So if this is 1/10 or 10 hundredths, and this is 20 hundredths, wouldn't 16 be right there? Sure, 16 hundredths. And then what if I go back to tenths? Well, we got 1, 2, 3, 4 tenths. And yes, some of you are saying it right now, that's 40 hundredths. You are correct. And then we got halfway. Well, halfway to 100 is 50, so this is 50 hundredths. But it's also halfway to 10, which is 5 tenths. This is the halfway mark between 0 and 1. Okay? And let me just, since we're halfway, this is also known as 50 hundredths, 0.50. And 5 tenths is also known as 0.5. See, all of those are equivalent. Then I just showed you 7 tenths. Then where would 76 hundredths be? Well, they'd be between 70 hundredths and 80 hundredths, right? Right there. There's 75 hundredths, 76 hundredths, right there. And then right before 90 hundredths, also known as 9 tenths, is 89 hundredths. Okay? So anyway, you might see some number lines today like that, so don't let it confuse you. The best thing to do is analyze it first, get your understanding before you start. Find those tenths, find those hundredths if they have them, and go from there. Now you might see some of these today too, where you're comparing hundredths to tenths, okay? Don't forget that any tenth, if you multiply the numerator by 10, turns it into hundredths. Because how does 10 get to 100? Times 10. So 6 times 10 is 60. So we're actually comparing 48 hundredths versus 60 hundredths. And you guys know 60 hundredths is greater than. So that makes it 48 hundredths is less than 60 hundredths. Okay? So let's look again here at, making equivalent fractions from tenths or hundredths. Okay? Well, we know from our number line up here, 7 tenths is also 70 hundredths. But let's say that doesn't click in your head yet. How does 10 go to 100? Times 10. Remember the other day, our last video, whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top and vice versa. 7 times 10, 70. Okay? What about going from hundredths to 10? Well, remember what we said a couple days ago. If you don't know right off the bat that that's 4 tenths, think about how does 100 go to 10? Divided by 10. Whatever you do to the bottom, you got to do to the top and vice versa. 40 divided by 10, 4. Okay? Now this one I left blank. I'm going to have to kneel for a second, okay, to get down this low. So adding tenths and hundredths. Now I know some of you remember this from before, but like we just did here, it's real easy to make 3 tenths into hundredths. So why don't we do that? So this left side is equal to the right. Yes, it is. It is equal. And when you add these up, you get 105 over 100. Okay? So you added 30 hundredths plus 75 hundredths. So you are past, if you think of that meter stick where there's 100 centimeters, you went 5 centimeters past the whole stick. Guess what decimal that is? Well, what's 100 over 100? That's 1 whole. then you got 500ths left. Okay? Oh yeah, I forgot. That's the fraction form. I forgot. I wanted to put this in decimal form for you. 1.05. Okay? What about this one? Same thing, 7/10 plus 2500ths. It's real easy to change 7/10 to 70/100 plus 2500ths, 9500ths. Okay? And you know that is 0.95 or 9500ths. Okay?
Can I ask you a question, Mr. Bauer?
Sure.
You're doing fantastic. What can they, if they wanted to, since they know 7/10 is 0.7 and 25/100 is 0.25, could they just do 0.7 plus 0.25 and make them decimals, or do you want them to switch them to fractions?
I think it's easier for fourth graders to see it over a common denominator.
Gotcha.
That's how we think in fourth grade.
Gotcha.
But that is possible.
Yeah, just to add up decimals.
Sure.
Just thank you.
And what she's saying is, if this is 0.7 and this is 0.25, okay? That's what she's saying, because if you added them up, it would look like that, guys and gals. Okay? And you can see what that's going to end up being, 0.95.
Yeah, the same as you got over there. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. So, let's talk about pages in the book. 268, number 1. I just went over this. They'll show you, all of these are equivalent. So we got 2/10 so this is 0 to 1, just like I did over here. This is 2 out of 10, also known as 0.2. It's also 20/100, which is 0.20, okay? Then they might show you something else like this is 0.5, which is also 5/10. 0.50, 50/100, 50/100. So it's kind of a review of what I showed you from the teacher's book, okay? Now, number 2 on page 268, they're like, I believe they said, if you have 0.7, out of these down here, what's equal to 0.7? Well, think about that, okay? So we've got this, right? We've got this, right? Okay. We've got 0.7, but also equivalent to 0.7 is that, right? 70/100, which is this. So let's look down here. This is less than 1, right? 7/10 is less than 1. Let's get rid of the whole numbers right now, okay? It's less than 1. So now, out of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 left, what equals 7/10 or 70/100? Well, what'd you call this again?
Oh, a placeholder?
This is called in high school, that's a placeholder, because it's we don't really need it here, but it's taking the place of the ones column. But once again, it could be there or it doesn't have to be there. Okay, but yeah, that is 70/100. Isn't 0.7 7/10? Yep. 70/100, 70/100, sure. Now, what happened to these last two? Okay, these are different now. These are so much smaller. So much smaller. If we did a number line of 0 and 1, 7/10 is like right here, let's say. These two are way over here because that's 7/100 and so is that. That's way down here. If we broke that into 100, 7 is way down there. Okay? So anyway, that's how you do those. 268, number 3B, it's just showing you if you got 3 strips, that's 3 out of 10. It's also 30 out of 100. And if you want to look at the decimals, 3/10, 30 out of 100, 30/100. Okay? I think most of you get that. so that shouldn't be too hard. 271 SB is just more review of what we've already done. Okay, kind of gets dark over here. I'll see if I can bring my light a little closer. Okay, so 273B, I believe, if I remember right, this whole page is you're kind of working with these kind of problems. Okay, 2 and 2300ths turned into a decimal. Okay, just remember this. You remember this from just a minute ago? 2300ths is 0.23. Okay, then we have a whole number 2. Well, isn't this the ones on the whole number side? Yep, it sure is. So we got a whole 2 there, and then 2300ths. Okay, so you're going to do kind of like a whole page of those. All right. 274, we were supposed to do this in school as a teacher-student kind of partnership. We can't do that. So on 274, I just want you to choose your own for the parts 1 through 4. You can choose your own fractions. It tells you what to do once you put the fractions there. It tells you what to do, but I'm just going to let you choose your own. Have fun with page 274. 278 is a decimal review. I didn't think you really needed help with that, so it's a decimal review. So down below, here's what I was talking about. It's broken up because, like I said, there's a lot of workplaces in there. So when you see a comma, it means you're not doing 268 through 271. You're doing 268. Then you're jumping to 271. You do not do 269, 270. Unless if you have all the parts to the workplace, you can do it at home, that's fine, but I'm not assigning it. And then you have 273 through 274, and then you jump to 278. So that's 5 pages of student book, okay? Then you got 4 pages of HC. You got 137, 138, 139, 140, okay? So for the whole module 2, you have 9 pages of work to do, okay? Home connections was more of the same that I just showed you. It might be in a different format, but if you really think about it, I think home connections, you'll do fine. Just think about everything we talked about this morning, okay, and you'll do fine. All right, so I will see you 2 more times on these videos. So this was, like I said, for Wednesday, June 3rd. So you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time at Studio B.